Hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking and welcome to another episode of Foxy's Fun Inspirational Chats. And today I will be your host. In this episode, this is going to be a fairly interesting and actually a real life story of two interesting male centenarians. Oh gosh, this title. But no, if you're gonna guess, no, this does not mean two gay centenarian men. No, it's not anything relating to homosexuality just because they're two male centenarians. No, nothing of that sort, no. But, and excuse me for saying this, I'm terribly sorry if this has ended up offending oneself. I'm dreadfully sorry. But yes, these two interesting male centenarians. They're very sadly no longer with us now, but this is a real life story actually. A proper British centenarian who lived in Wales for the rest of his retirement life, and a Belgian born British centenarian too, who did many impressive things before reaching his centenary, and the other one was still and actually fairly prominent, even living past the age of 100. I'll go for you in the list of order. It's Searson Thompson and Harry Fransman, these two interesting male centenarians I'll be talking to you about in this real life story. And I'm so longing to share it. Right, Searson Thompson, who was born in December of 1911, nearly 1912, born in Leicestershire, Leicester in Leicestershire, who did start his early career in his youth, in his free time, performing stunts on motorbikes, a former war veteran, and I don't think he did stunts as his full-time occupation, but he absolutely was a very keen man on motorbike stunts, lived a married life, had a son, had a granddaughter, and that was how his life went, and had a happy working life until after he retired, he moved over to Abu Dhabi in Wales, where he lived until his wife then very sadly died, unfortunately years before he did, which was very, very sad. Yes, it does sadly happen. Either someone's husband goes before one elderly man, before an elderly, or relating to elderly people, or a wife goes before the marriage, you know. It's very sad. The truce hurts with that truthful reality, I'm afraid, particularly with older age. Yeah. Yes, but despite his wife's loss, he still went on holiday to South Africa every year until, and he still reportedly went on holiday to South Africa just 2 months shy of his 100th birthday in 2011. Still going on holiday abroad even past the age of 100. Which is incredibly impressive, especially for a man of that age. And he was also still driving when he was 102 and 103. Still driving it a few months shy of his 103rd birthday, he appeared on the documentary 100-Year-Old Drivers, along with other centenarians. They weren't just people over the age of 100. The youngest participant in the series was a few 91-year-olds. Some 93, some past the age of 90. They usually range, in 100-year-old drivers, the participants of elderly drivers range from about 90, 91 to 100 plus, and that's how it goes. And Searson Thompson himself was the oldest participant in the series, at 102, nearly 103. and he was still driving past the age of at 102, and even at 103 he was still very much driving. Yes, it's rather worrisome, I know, but it's worth sharing. Yes, and I'm actually quite celebrated by people still driving over the age of 100. I know a lot of people would not be celebrated by it, because many have said people over 90 shouldn't be on the road. They say it in a click of a few fingers like that. I'd understand why they say it, but of course they do say it for their own safety, obviously. And, where am I? Oh, I'm dreadfully sorry. Yes. Getting to the next part, he did stop driving eventually. I think he stopped driving because he was 14 when he started driving. I think he kept driving until he was around about, say, I should think about 104, something like that. I mean, and he was still living in his own home until just a few months before he died. But also, for over 100, he was amazing for a man his age. I mean, well, I don't know about amazing, but you wouldn't have thought he was over 100. I mean, I would have thought he was, when he was, say, 102, I would have thought he was about, say, oh dear, a yawn can certainly be catchy over oneself, dear oh dear. When he was, say, 102, for example, say, from the age of about 99 until he was, say, and 102, I would have thought he was about, say, 86, 85, maybe, 86, a very robust man in his, say, mid to late 80s. I would have thought he was about 85, 86 when he was 99 and 102. Yes, and yes, you never believed he was that age. I mean, he looked about, say, maybe say 78, in my opinion, 78, 80 instead of 102. Personally, I think he looked older than what Michael O'Connor looked like when he was 102, and I personally think he looked older than what Robert Grant Pitt-Swayton looked like when he was 102, although he's sadly also no longer with us, Robert Grant Pitt-Swayton. I wouldn't say he was handsome like Robert Grant Pitt-Swayton. Well, no, he wasn't handsome in the latter of his life, but just good looking. I mean, I meant to say Michael O'Connor, sorry. Michael O'Connor's the handsome centenarian, and actually still alive. You know. Searson Thompson, I wouldn't really say he was handsome, no. He was good looking and a little bit overweight, but he was a very, robust, actually, even at the age of 100, 102, very, robust looking, very, well, not really overweight, but a fairly stocky and burly sort of type build in his hundreds. I mean, he wasn't skinny in the arms or anything, or in his legs, when he was that age. No, but he became a fairly prominent man after appearing in 100-year-old drivers and being known to take and still taking his holiday to South Africa at the age of 99 and 100. Yes, but I think, although he was still pretty well at that point. At 105 he'd aged slightly and it looked like he'd lost a bit of weight, but still looking very good. But he looked about, say, maybe about 87 maybe? 86, 87, 88? Maybe in his very late 80s when he was 105. A little bit thinner, but still looking very good, in my honest opinion. Or maybe 85, maybe I'd say 20 years younger at 105. He'd aged a bit, but still looking very good. But it was really when he got to say maybe 106, 107, it looked like he'd really aged, and it looked like if you'd seen him at some time after his 106th birthday, you know, it looked like something was fairly wrong. I mean, he didn't look, in my opinion, I didn't think he looked 106 shortly after his 106th birthday or 107th, but he was looking a lot considerably frailer, and well, considerably slimmer when he was 106 compared to when he was 99 and 102. And he was looking really very frail, the poor man. And also he was needing help in the latter of his life from the Abercare in Wales. And they did a fantastically phenomenal job for him, helping him with any care needed, and that with the nursing, regarding the nursing obligations. His granddaughter Alice said that if it weren't for Abercare and they didn't know about it, he would have probably had to go into a home when he was 106. You know, but it's still pretty impressive to be in your own home at that age, because he was in his own home until the very early spring of 2019, the following year. Yes, but he eventually went into a nursing home, moving out of Abu Dhabi in the early spring of 2019 and moving to the Alexandra Care Nursing Home in Tywyn, near Tywyn Wharf, near to the Tallyclyn Steam Railway in North Wales. You know. And he resided there until he very sadly died at the age of 107, because he died in July 2019, aged 107. He died just over 4.5 months shy of his 108th birthday, which was very sad. I mean, obviously it would be expected at that age. It is very sad to die at any age, but obviously it's certainly to be expected to go at that age. I mean, 107. Living to be 107 or any age older than 95 is nothing but astonishing. It really is. And I could tell you that, very much so. But Searson Thompson had lived he lived a good life. It seems to me he lived a very good life, you know. And now getting to the next person, Harry Fransman, born in Belgium in November of 1911. He was just under a month older than Searson Thompson. But yes, he was born in Antwerp in Belgium in November of 1911. In 1920, he, along with his 3 brothers and his parents, Jacques and Judith, moved over to South Africa, all the way from Belgium, with, well, young Harry, when he was then 8, going on for 9 years of age. It was 100 years before he died, they moved to Belgium. He's also no longer with us also, Harry Fransman. Dear oh dear, I'm dreadfully sorry. He lived in South Africa for some parts of his time, and then he met and married his wife, Helen. Harry and Helen got married in 1936, and I should think they moved over to Belgium after they got married. And he could remember South Africa very, very vividly before World War II, and he would be reminiscing about it in the latter of his life. I do apologise. After they got married, they had 4 children together, 3 daughters and 1 son. And Harry worked as a businessman throughout a lot of a period of his life, and I don't think he retired till fairly late, actually. I don't think Harry Fransman himself retired until, I should think, in his very late 60s, early 70s, working as a businessman. And he and his wife Helen, who all actually came from England herself, they emigrated to England in 1987 when Harry was then 75, going on for 76, and Helen, I don't know how old Helen was at that point, but I should think she was in either her very late 60s or very early 70s. I think Helen was younger than Harry. They moved over to London, Greater London, in 1987, and in their retirement years, escaping the harshly cold winter conditions, escaping those harshly cold, winter conditions of harshly cold temperatures, they'd go on a cruise. They'd go escaping on a luxurious cruise every winter. And Harry Fransman himself did cruise despite doctors taunting him over worries of his age and his health. He would not give up going on cruises every single harshly cold, bitter winter, with his wife Helen, of course, until he was well into his 90s. Impressively, he wouldn't stop going on cruises until he was well into his 90s, which is just nothing but impressive. Could you imagine if we had the first 100-year-old man or first 100-year-old lady going on a cruise? Or probably an 110-year-old man or an 110-year-old lady taking a cruise vacation. Or a cruise holiday, let alone cruise excursion. Nothing could be funnier, it gets better. But there are many people in their 80s or 90s who do actually go on cruises. It's certainly not unusual. It's been known for years, actually. You know. But if you can do it at that age, I don't see why they shouldn't. Yes. And but very, very sadly, after 75 glorious years of marriage, Helen sadly died in 2011. Shortly, actually, just a few months before Harry's 100th birthday, which devastated Harry greatly. Yes. And actually, Harry, although when he took the cruises until he was well into his 90s, he was walking completely unaided, and when he was in his 90s and well into his 90s, on the cruise, walking completely unaided until that point. But, yes, very sadly, after his wife's death, despite that he continued living alone, but then very sadly he had a terrible fall in his home. Sometime after his wife's death, he had a very bad fall, resulting in fracturing both his hips, resulting in having to have 2 hip operations. He underwent the surgery without facing surgical complications, but after the surgery he impressively survived the surgical operating anaesthetic at such a great age, following the hip operations, but after his operations he had to go into a home. He didn't go into a care home or a nursing home, he went into a residential retirement home from Greater London to Elstree in Hertfordshire. And after he moved there, he happily settled there, and he was actually very happy when he was there because he made lots of friends. His family would come to visit him. He was happy. He did his own thing and everything, and despite having 2 hip replacements and living in a residential retirement home in the latter of his life, it was quite a few years. It was definitely quite a few years when he resided there. he continued taking long walks every day to stretch his legs until just very, very shortly before he died. I mean, yes. And then even just a few months before his death, when he was reportedly taking long walks every day until just very, very shortly before he died. Incredibly! My goodness gracious. It probably shocked many of you. It certainly surprised me when I learned about him taking long walks every day until he was well into his 90s. Oh no, until he was just a few months before his death, and he was actually well over 100 at that point, because he's very sadly no longer with us. But Harry Fransman very sadly died on the 25th of September 2020, aged 108, just 2 months before his 109th birthday. Very, very sadly, you know. And that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Thanks for watching this episode of this real life story. I'll show you a few pictures of Searson Thompson and Harry Fransman before the video ends. Thanks so much indeed for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Ta-ta everybody, another time. From your friend Foxy, another time. Ah.